Hey everyone, my name is Alyssa V, and I'm here to talk to you today about the coming home process. Little backstory, I have a rambunctious 4-year-old that can be very loud, so I chose to pre-record this session for you instead of going live, so there were no interruptions. But I wanted to take a minute and just introduce myself before I present my talk to share a little bit about who I am and how I came on this journey. And I'm curious if you resonate with anything that I have experienced and am experiencing. And if so, I invite you to come home to yourself alongside me. So, with that said, I am Alyssa V. I'm a psychosomatic therapist by trade, and I now do holistic embodiment coaching and mentorship. So essentially, I use my psychotherapeutic skills, my somatic therapeutic skills, and I help people feel safe in their bodies. And I do so specifically with one-on-one containers. I will be experimenting with some group containers in the future, but I really, really love my intimate one-on-one work. I have been on a journey of self-healing for the last 15 years. It has been like skyrocketed for the last 6 years since COVID started. And I ended a relationship before I found my husband and had our child that showed me parts of myself that were really unhealthy. And it gave me awareness of how I was hanging onto these patterns that didn't belong to me. Maybe they belonged to my mom or my dad, previous generations. And then I started to what I call unravel. And I began to unravel in a way that I learned who I was by clearly documenting who I was not and allowing myself to let those parts of me go. And I did that through the lens of unconscious reprogramming and through somatic release. I also created a great deal of awareness of the human design system and astrology. And I tied all of that in with my understanding of intuitive energy work, the chakra system, my own spiritual path, and really just learning how to be the highest version of myself in all situations. And that's not to say that I didn't make a ton of mistakes and that I didn't hurt a lot of people, including myself, along the way. But I learned a lot of wisdom along the way, and I use that wisdom to share with people like yourself watching to go along your own healing journey and to use me as a poster child, as a role model of sorts of what life can respectively be like if you choose yourself over and over and over again. And one of the things that I've learned with choosing myself is that it oftentimes deters a lot of other people. So I am left sometimes with people really not liking me and not knowing why. And then I'm also pleasantly left with people who tell me that I inspire them and that they feel deeply influenced by me. And I continue to do the work to show up for my clients, to show up for my audience on social media at Alyssa V Heals. And first and foremost, to be honest, for myself, for my daughter, and for my husband. A little bit more about me. I have lost both of my parents. I'm an only child. And I lost both of my parents in a year and a half. And that was 6 months ago that my mom died and my dad died 14 months before that. And I had experienced a great deal of trauma through, name it. I don't want to trigger anybody here. Name it. Follow me, hear a little bit more of my story. And I have essentially publicly shared what that process looks like. And I have neatly packaged it into an offering that I will share with you at the end of my talk, because I want to get to talking about what the coming home process is. So the last little tiny bit about me is I curated all of this to be the foundation of my business, Rising Phoenix Intuitive Wellness, where my slogan, my motto is come home to yourself, because you deserve to be home. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be loved. And you deserve to feel like you're enough at all times, regardless of what people tell you, regardless of what other people might think. And the sooner we can realize that we are the catalyst for those changes in our lives, I feel like the sooner we will really, truly experience inner peace. So please enjoy. And I hope to hear from you after the session if you are curious about any of the work that I do, or to follow me on social media. I love to network. Thank you. Peace. Welcome, welcome. My name is Alyssa V. Before I tell you a bit about myself and what I do, I want to ask you something. When was the last time you did something, said something, chose something, were something that was completely, unapologetically yours? Not filtered through what your mother would think, not shaped by what your partner needs you to be, not performing for the version of yourself that you've been selling to the world. Just you. I want you to hold that question. We're going to come back to it. But first, a little about me. I'm Alyssa V, a psychosomatic therapist and holistic embodiment coach. I'm the owner of Rising Phoenix Intuitive Wellness, which just underwent a huge overhaul to be more of service for those who are looking to come home to themselves. I have 7 years of experience in private practice and over 15 years of experience on my own homecoming journey. And honestly, that second number is where the majority of what I teach actually comes from. The lived experience, the healing that happened in the dark before anyone was watching me. So I won't take up too much of your time talking about me, because you're not here for that. You're here to learn about this process. So let's begin. If that question made you pause, if something in your chest just got a little tight, you're exactly who this talk is for. Because most of us have been so busy becoming what everyone else needed us to be that we forgot to ask who we actually are underneath all of it. The conditioning, the roles, the survival strategies that kept us safe once upon a time, and now just keep us small. I know this because I lived it. I didn't grow up with a roadmap back to myself. I grew up in cycles of abuse, addiction, codependency, shame, and women and men who had learned generation after generation that their power wasn't safe. So they buried it, performed around it, or burned themselves out completely trying to prove something to a world that had already decided who they were. And for a long time, I did the same until I found my way home. That's what the next 30 minutes is about. Not self-improvement, not another framework to fix what's wrong with you, because nothing is. A way back to you. So pause, take a breath, and let the room settle around you. Before we can talk about coming home, we have to talk about how we got lost in the first place. Are you ready? We don't lose ourselves all at once. It happens slowly, layer by layer. It starts young. Someone tells you that you're too much, too loud, too emotional, too big, too sensitive. And because you're small and you need them, you believe it. So you start shrinking. You start editing. Or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe you learn to be invisible, to stay quiet, to take up as little space as possible so you wouldn't be a burden to anyone, so you wouldn't get hurt. And then your family had roles, and you played yours, the good one, the responsible one, the peacekeeper, the one who held it all together, because if you didn't, something bad might happen. Something and someone might fall apart. So you learned to put yourself last, and you got really, really good at it. And then the world piled on. Culture told you what a woman is supposed to look like, what a man is supposed to do, what you're supposed to want, how much you're allowed to achieve before something becomes threatening, how soft you should be, how hard you should be, how much you should sacrifice, how little space you're allowed to take up before someone calls you difficult. And underneath all of that, for many of us, there were experiences that taught us the most brutal lesson of all, that our bodies weren't safe, that our voices wouldn't be believed, that love came with conditions, and that we had to earn our right to simply exist. Those experiences don't just leave emotional scars, they leave blueprints. They become the architecture of how we move through the world, how we relate, how we show up, and how we disappear. So here's what I need you to hear, and I really mean hear. None of this means that you're broken. It just means that you're human. Every single adaptation that you made was intelligent. It was for survival. Your nervous system was doing exactly what it was designed to do, to protect you. The problem is that it kept doing it long after the danger passed, long after you grew up, long after you didn't need those strategies anymore. So if you've been wondering why you keep repeating the same patterns, why you keep choosing the same relationships, the same jobs, the same ways of abandoning yourself over and over, this is why. You're not broken. You're running on old software, and it can be updated one step at a time. So let that land for a moment. Don't rush through it. See what comes up. Now, if these patterns are old software, what's actually running the program? Because here's what most people don't realize, and this changed everything for me. Approximately 95% of our behavior is driven by the unconscious mind. Let that land for a second. That means that only 5% of the choices that you think you're making consciously, you're actually making. The relationships, the self-sabotage, the way that you speak to yourself in the mirror, most of it is being run by a program that was laid long before you even had the language to question it. Your unconscious mind learned what love looks like from the first people who loved you. It learned what you deserve, what's possible, and what to expect. And then it built a filter, a lens that made you find evidence for those beliefs everywhere that you look. Psychologists call it the reticular activating system. You already believe you're not enough, so your brain finds proof that every single day, wherever it looks, that you're not enough. Not because it's true, but because that's what it was trained to look for, which is why willpower alone doesn't work. That's why you can read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, do all the journaling, and still find yourself in the same place, stuck at the same ceiling, in the same argument, choosing the same kind of person again and again. You can't think your way out of a felt experience. You have to go deeper than the conscious mind. And that's what intentional reprogramming is. It's not magic, though it might feel like it. It's neuroscience. It's understanding that the brain is plastic, that it can form new pathways, that the stories we've been running on autopilot can be interrupted, rewired, replaced through NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, through visualization done in a specific, targeted way, through identity-level belief work, through pattern interruptions that catch the old program mid-run and say, wait, that's not mine anymore. And when we work at this level, we're not just changing behavior, we're changing who you believe yourself to be. And that's where real transformation lives. But there's one more piece, and it's the one that most personal development skips entirely. So take a moment with me. The mind is only half the story. The other half lives right here. Your body has been keeping score long before you had any words for any of this. Every experience you ever had that felt too big, too scary, too painful, too shameful to really feel got stored somewhere in your shoulders, in the tightness of your chest, and the way that you flinch when someone raises their voice, and the exhaustion that has nothing to do with how much you slept. The body doesn't lie, and it never forgets. But here's what most of us do. We live from the neck up. We intellectualize everything. We analyze, we strategize, we try to logic our way through feelings that were never meant to be thought through. They were meant to be moved through, felt through. And when we don't move them, they stay. They build up and they drive us. That's where the nervous system comes in. Because when your nervous system is dysregulated, stuck in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, you're not operating from your highest self. You're operating from survival, from an animalistic and primal part of you. And from survival, you can't access clarity. You can't access intuition. You can't access desire. And you can't access truth. You can only react. So all the mindset work in the world will only take you so far if your nervous system is still running on high alert. If your body still believes it's in danger. If it hasn't yet learned that it's safe to be you, fully, openly, unapologetically you. This is why regulation is the foundation. Breath work, intentional movement, somatic awareness, learning to actually feel what's happening in your body in real time instead of bypassing it, learning to sit with each sensation instead of running from it. This is where the spiritual world and the scientific world shake hands. Because when you learn to listen to your body, like really listen, you start to access something that no amount of thinking can give you. Inner knowing. That quiet inner voice that's been trying to reach you for years. That's not woo-woo. That's your nervous system finally feeling safe enough to speak. Your body is not the enemy. It never was. Your mind really isn't either. They've just been trying to be the messenger this whole time. And it's been trying to bring you home. Right here, in the body. And then when you finally learn to listen, everything changes. So what happens when you actually do this work? What does it look like when someone starts to come home? I want to be honest with you. Homecoming is not just a moment. It's not a single breakthrough, though those do happen. It's not linear, and it's certainly not always graceful. Sometimes coming home looks like crying in your car and finally, letting yourself feel it instead of swallowing it back down. Sometimes it looks like saying no to something that you would have said yes to out of guilt and feeling the ground hold you instead of the world ending. Sometimes it looks like looking in the mirror and not immediately cataloging everything that's wrong, just looking, being there, existing without apology. And sometimes it's big. Sometimes it's the moment that you realize the relationship that you've been in with a person, with a job, with an old story about yourself, no longer fits who you're becoming. And instead of panic, you feel something strange. Relief. Because that's what it feels like to be in alignment with yourself. Not perfect, not done, but true. Decisions start to come from clarity instead of fear. Boundaries stop feeling like walls you have to defend and start feeling like honest expressions of who you are. Relationships begin to feel nourishing instead of depleting because you stop bringing a performance and start bringing a person. Your body starts to feel like yours. Your voice starts to feel like yours. And the quiet, the space underneath all the noise you were creating to avoid yourself, starts to feel like home instead of something to be afraid of. I know this because it happened for me. Not because someone fixed me, not because I finally became the version of myself that was safe enough for everyone else, but because I chose me over and over again, imperfectly, messily, bravely. And every time I did, I healed something more. not just for myself, but for the women who came before me, my ancestors who never got the chance, for the ones who will come after me who don't have to start from scratch. That's the work, and it's the most important work that you will ever do. So before I close, I want to share something for those of you who felt something move during this talk, who are sitting right here now with a hand on your heart, thinking, I need more than a talk. I need someone to actually walk this with me. I hear you. And I created something specifically for that. It's called The Unraveling. The Unraveling is my deepest one-on-one container, a fully personalized, high-touch experience where we do exactly what the name says. We unravel, thread by thread, layer by layer, everything that has kept you from yourself. The conditioning, the survival strategies, the identity level beliefs that have been running your life from the background. It isn't coaching, nor is it traditional therapy. It's something in between and beyond both of those things. Inside the unraveling, we work with NLP and time technique to reprogram the unconscious patterns at the root. We use somatic work and nervous system regulation to bring the body into the healing, not just the mind. We work with human design to understand who you are actually underneath all of the layers of conditioning. And I bring my intuitive gifts into the room too, because sometimes the most important thing isn't what you can articulate. It's what your body already knows and hasn't had the space to say yet. The part that can feel that something needs to shift. This is the container where people stop managing their healing and actually complete chapters of it, where the ceiling they've been hitting for years in their relationships, in their businesses, in their sense of self finally gives way. Now, I will be frank, the unraveling is an investment of $5,000 to $10,000, depending on the scope of work and payment structure. And because you showed up here today, because you gave this summit your time and your presence, you qualify for a partial scholarship. That's not a sales tactic. That's a genuine thank you for being in the room and doing the work it takes to show up for yourself. Right here, right now. It's not for everyone, and I mean that with full love. It's for the person who is done dabbling, who's done enough surface work to know that something deeper is calling them, who's ready to stop surviving their life and actually start living it. So if something in you just said yes, that's worth paying attention to. You can find me at Rising Phoenix Intuitive Wellness, risingphoexiw.com, or reach out directly on Instagram or Facebook at Alyssa V Heals. Tell me who you are, tell me where you are, and tell me what you've been carrying. Let's talk about whether the unraveling is your next right step. All right, now let me send you off. I'm going to leave you with something simpler than that. Today, sometime today, I just want you to stop. Put your hand on your heart and take one real breath. And ask yourself, what do I actually need right now? Not what does everyone else need from me? Not what should I want? Not what would be the best version of me? And what would they choose to do? What do I need right now, in this body, in this moment? And then listen. Not to the noise, not to the fear, not to the voices that were installed in you by people who were also lost. To yourself. That's the beginning. That's the thread back to you. And you are so worth following it home. Peace. Wait, before you go, I just wanted to take a minute to thank you again for coming to the Light Council Summit and for listening to my talk, Coming Home. In return, I want to give you a free gift called the Seed Sessions. It's a guided meditative series that can give you a taste of what the unraveling can offer for you. So keep an eye out on your email. Make sure that you're signed up for the mailing list for the Light Council Summit, and you should receive that in the next few days. Thank you again for showing up for yourself, for being here, and for coming home. Peace.